My son let me be locked outside his wedding, not knowing about the $55 million gift I had planned. The gates of Highfield Manor gleamed under the morning sun, polished to perfection for a wedding that wasn't mine to attend. I held Ruth's corsage in one hand, the one meant for my son's bride. The planner's headset crackled. "Copy that. Groom says no entry." I frowned. "Excuse me?" She didn't blink. "We're at capacity, Mr. Hayes." Then came his voice. My son's voice. "Get this man off the property. He's dead to me." The words hit harder than any fire I'd ever faced. Guests turned. A glass shattered somewhere inside. And through the chaos, I saw his mother, Isabella, smiling a perfect, practiced smirk. I stayed silent, steady. Pulled out my phone, dialed the venue manager. "This wedding," I said, "is canceled. I own this manor. Get them off my property." Isabella's smile cracked. My son's face froze. And just like that, the real ceremony began. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you? And where are you listening? They say every fire starts with a spark, but in my family it began with a smile, too polite, too sharp. Summit Ridge Country Club had that polished, trying too hard charm that made everything smell faintly of lemon polish and old money. Even the sunlight felt filtered, respectful of the membership fees. I arrived 5 minutes early, old firefighter habit. You learn to be early to everything except your own death. Evan and Serena were already seated under the skylight. Across from them sat her parents, Victor and Elaine Whitcomb, posture straight, laughter precise, their forks raised like weapons with silver edges. And next to Victor, because of course she'd be there, was Isabella, my ex-wife, and Evan's mother, wearing her favorite pearl earrings, the ones she'd refused to sell even during the divorce. Victor swirled his mimosa as I took my seat. "Walter Hayes," he said, voice smooth as a politician's handshake. "The man of action. Public service, wasn't it? Admirable, though not what I'd call strategic." There it was, the first crack. Serena reached for her Dior handbag and patted it like a pet. "Evan was telling us about your retirement," she said. "It must feel good to finally slow down." "Feels earned," I replied. Victor leaned in. "Public service is quaint," he said, raising his glass, "but wealth that's leverage." The jazz trio in the corner shifted into take 5. I counted the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ruth used to love that song. Isabella smiled that smile she used to wear when she wanted blood without the mess. "Walter still reads the Wall Street Journal, like it's scripture," she said lightly. "He always believed in the nobility of effort." Evan looked down at his plate. Didn't say a word. Serena tapped her Cartier bracelet against her glass. A soft, metallic rhythm that seemed rehearsed. "Strategy," she said, "is knowing when to let the past sit in a shadow box." I stirred my coffee. The spoon trembled. The air smelled of lemon and mockery. "Strategy," I said, "is knowing who you run toward when the alarms sound." Silence. Even the jazz trio hesitated. Then Isabella laughed, soft, practiced, surgical. Victor raised his mimosa again. "To new generations," he said, "who build on the ruins of the old." I nodded once. "Just remember who cleared the debris first." No one laughed. Evan's jaw worked as if he wanted to say something, anything, but didn't. His fiancée's hand rested on his, and whatever courage he had left sank beneath her manicured fingers. I looked around the room, the marble pillars, the sunlight fractured through crystal glass, the hairline crack running along the baseboard by the window. I'd seen that kind of flaw before, right before a ceiling came down. After the plates were cleared, I excused myself, walked to the terrace. The air was cooler there, quieter. I looked out over the golf course, green, perfect, lifeless. Above me, tucked under the awning, was a tiny black eye, the Ring camera. I smiled. Funny how people forget that even luxury comes with surveillance. I pulled out my iPhone, opened voice memos. One-party consent state, legal, practical. Behind me, through the glass, Isabella leaned in close to Serena, whispering something that made them both laugh. Evan watched but didn't intervene. Ruth's voice came back to me, the memory of lavender on her wrists. Her gentle certainty. "You did the right thing, Walt. Just breathe." So I counted. Air in, air out. 1, 2, 3, 4. When I finally turned to leave, my reflection in the window looked tired but calm. I didn't need to shout. Fires start small. So do reckonings. The first crack isn't loud. It's a smile that lingers too long and a sun who doesn't step in. By the time I pulled into Highfield Manor, the sky had that washed-out color that sits between blue and silver like a promise that never planned to keep itself. The chapel doors stood open, and from inside came the sound of laughter that didn't quite reach the rafters. The place smelled of beeswax, peonies, and just enough money to pretend everything was under control. Serena stood at the front with a clipboard, and that decisive air of someone used to curating perfection. Her mother, Elaine, hovered beside her in a Chanel jacket that whispered Old Hampton's money. Evan trailed behind them, half-smile plastered on, tugging at his cufflinks like they were handcuffs. "Dad," he said too brightly, "you made it." "I'm early," I replied. Force of habit. Serena gave a tight smile, eyes flicking to the seating chart laid out on the altar. Little white cards, handwritten in gold. I scanned for my name, found it, rear section, left wing, right behind a floral pillar. Elaine noticed me reading it. "We thought it'd be better symmetry," she said, brushing invisible dust from the table. "Camera angles, you know." "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't want reality in the frame." Serena didn't look up. "It's nothing personal, Walter, just aesthetics. We're trying to avoid visual clutter." "Visual clutter," I repeated. "That's a new way to describe parents." Evan shifted his weight, eyes darting between us. "Come on, let's not make this a thing. It's just rehearsal." Then Isabella arrived on time, of course, because control has its own punctuality. She breezed in like perfume and accusation, kissing Serena's cheek before pretending to notice me. "Walter," she said, drawing out the word like a sigh, "you still drive that old Lincoln? It's very loyal of you." "I try not to trade in what still works," I said. She turned to Evan. "Darling, about the program, remember, we're skipping over your father's firefighter years. It's better to keep it elegant." Evan rubbed his temple. "Sure, Mom." I felt the air shift. "Ruth will be mentioned," I said evenly. "It's her scholarship that funded half the guest list." Serena finally looked at me then, head tilted. "Whose request?" "Mine." A pause long enough for the silence to hum like a live wire. Serena smiled, that brittle smile of hers, the kind that could crack glass. "We're centering living family," she said. There it was, the second crack. I nodded slowly. "Then make sure you center the truth, too. It photographs better." No one spoke. The photographer coughed and asked if we could get back to positioning. Evan took Serena's side automatically, guiding her to the front. The flash popped. I was told to move just a bit left, then a bit more, until the pillar framed me neatly, an afterthought in my own son's wedding. While they fussed with poses, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my attorney, Alvarez. "Draft ready. Red line clause still pending your approval." I typed back. "Pause trust announcement. We may need the clause." Then I pocketed the phone and watched Evan smile for the camera. It wasn't joy. It was survival. The kind that bends instead of breaks, at least until it doesn't. My mind flickered back to a different ceremony years ago, a scholarship night Ruth had organized for rookie EMTs. She'd pinned corsages on their jackets, told one kid, "Make room, Walter," even when they won't for you. The scent of peonies in the chapel blurred into that memory, the same sweetness, different meaning. I stepped back, letting the flash go off one last time. The photo would come out perfect, I knew. Perfection always hides a crack. If they're rewriting the program, then I'll revisit the script. There's a particular kind of quiet you only hear in a law office high above the city, like money holding its breath. Alvarez's office sat on the 42nd floor in Midtown, all glass and gray leather. Outside, sirens drifted up from the avenue, faint through the double panes. Inside, the only sound was the faint tick of the wall clock and the shuffle of thick paper. He slid a folder across the desk, the Bank of America seal gleaming in the corner. "Custodial letter," he said. "All liquid. No speculation. The full $55 million is under Ruth's trust." The number looked unreal, written in ink. Ruth's signature, slanted and strong, was on the founding papers. The sight of it felt like a hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Alvarez tapped the Mont Blanc pen I'd brought from home. It had a nick on the clip from the day Ruth dropped it at the firehouse fundraiser. She'd laughed and said, "It's just a pen, Walt, not a promise." But she'd been wrong. It was both. "Sign here if you still want the announcement made at the wedding," Alvarez said. "Your son and his wife would each become advisory members for the fund." I leaned back in the chair, the leather sighing beneath me. "And the conditions?" He straightened his tie. "Service requirement minimum 200 community hours a year. Transparency clause quarterly financial disclosures to the foundation board. And we can add one more if you like." I raised an eyebrow. "Such as?" He hesitated, then spoke lower. "An integrity clause. No public denigration of first responders or the values Ruth's Trust stands for. If violated, their spousal stipend reverts to the foundation." The idea sat between us, heavy but clean. I thought of the brunch, the mimosas, the laughter, Serena's metallic tapping on her bracelet, Isabella's disdainful tone, firefighting's quaint. Public service is provincial. The heat crept back into my palms like an old reflex. My hands remembered the weight of the helmet, the roar of the diesel ladder truck, the thick sting of smoke in my lungs. All those years of running toward fire, while people like them ran their mouths. "At it," I said. Alvarez's brow lifted. "You're sure?" I met his eyes. "I'm done rewarding contempt." He nodded once, quietly respectful, and began typing. The sound of keystrokes filled the room. When he was done, he turned the document around and slid it toward me again. "You understand, Walter Public Clause means public trigger. If they violate it, it has to be documented. You can't bury it quietly." That's fine," I said. "Fire doesn't spread quietly either." I signed my name beneath Ruth's, slow and deliberate. The ink caught the light like a thin scar. Alvarez closed the folder. "So when do you want to announce it?" "After the vows," I said. "If they've earned it." He leaned back, studying me. "You're setting a high bar." Ruth always did. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us looking at the city through the glass. Yellow taxis crawled below like sparks on asphalt. Somewhere, a siren cut through traffic, a single wail, fading fast. "This trust isn't revenge," I said finally. "It's a reminder of what matters and what doesn't." Alvarez smiled faintly. "That's a rare kind of legacy these days." I picked up the Mont Blanc, clicked the cap back on, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The metal was warm from my hand. If they force me to choose between love and the value that raised us, they'll hear my answer on paper first. The night before the wedding, the air around Highfield Manor smelled like cut grass and arrogance. The gravel crunched under my Lincoln's tires as I pulled into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the iron gates I'd paid to restore myself. The brass plaque on the stone column read, "Highfield Manor, H.F. Holdings, my holding company, my property," though apparently that detail had slipped a few minds. A young woman in black heels and a headset appeared before my car, tablet in hand, the kind of smile that meant, "I've been briefed." Her earpiece glowed blue under the lamplight. "Good evening, sir," she said. "Vendor entrance only tonight. Family guests use the front gate tomorrow." I rolled down the window. "I'm not a vendor." "Understood," she said, still smiling. "But we're setting up and need to keep this entrance clear." Behind her, workers in tuxedo vests were unloading champagne cases. A florist adjusted a tower of hydrangeas taller than me. Money everywhere, but not an ounce of sense. Before I could answer, Isabella's voice floated through the night. "Walter, darling, there you are." She emerged from the glow of a Range Rover, pearls gleaming like small moons around her neck. "Do be a dear and stay out of the way tonight," she said, waving toward the staff like she owned them. "The real decisions are happening inside." "Is that so?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Serena's planner has everything under control. You wouldn't want to confuse the staff." Evan appeared next, Tuck's jacket slung over one shoulder, the picture of a man torn between two loyalties and too tired to admit it. "Dad," he said, rubbing his neck. "It's fine, they're just doing their job. Let them handle it." I glanced past him at the brass plaque again, the one no one else seemed to notice. H.F. Holdings. My company, my deed, my responsibility. But Ruth's voice came to me quiet, grounded. "Pick the right fire to fight." So I smiled. "Carry on," I said. The planner looked relieved, like she'd won something. Isabella turned to walk back toward the manor, already whispering into her phone. Evan followed, adjusting his cufflinks, not once looking back. I pulled forward a few yards and parked by the guardhouse. Inside, a Nest monitor flickered with rows of black SUVs waiting for clearance. The security guard straightened as I stepped in. "Evening, Mr. Hayes," he said, eyes darting to the screen. "You're, on the owner's list, of course." I tapped my name on the digital access panel, the one I'd set up myself when I bought the property. Green check mark, full privileges. "Would you like me to override the event restriction?" he asked, finger hovering over the keyboard. I shook my head. "No. Let's follow their protocol." He blinked, uncertain. "Sir?" "Let them manage it," I said. "We'll just make sure the cameras stay rolling." He nodded slowly. The Nest feed showed Isabella greeting more guests, her laughter bright and hollow. Evan trailed behind, smiling on command. I stepped outside again. The night was thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and memory. A moth kept beating itself against the guardhouse lamp, soft wings slapping glass again and again, too stubborn to stop. I walked the perimeter in silence, counting hydrants like I used to before inspections. 3 along the drive, 1 near the east hedge, another by the guest cottages. Old habits die slower than pride. From the manor came the faint sound of string instruments rehearsing, the melody polished but empty. The kind of music that looks good on video but means nothing live. I checked my phone, one unread message from Alvarez. "Everything ready for tomorrow, confirming clause in effect." I texted back. "If they lock me out tomorrow, are we covered?" A single check mark appeared. I slid the phone into my jacket and looked once more at the glowing windows of the manor. They gleamed like a stage set, pretty, temporary, flammable. If they confuse borrowed shine for ownership, the morning will teach them what a deed feels like. Morning sunlight spilled over Highfield Manor like gold on glass, too bright, too calm. I parked my Lincoln at the lower gate, the same gravel crunching beneath the tires as last night. The air smelled of lavender, Ruth's favorite, freshly trimmed along the walkway. In my pocket was a small velvet box. Inside it, Ruth's corsage pin, silver, simple, the one she wore to every department dinner, every awards night. I'd planned to hand it to Serena, to tell her Ruth would have wanted her to have it. A sound cracked in the air, radio static. The planner, headset gleaming under the morning sun, raised a manicured finger to her earpiece. "Copy that," she said, glancing at me. "The groom says no entry." Her tone was polite, her eyes weren't. I frowned. "Excuse me?" She didn't flinch. "We're at capacity, Mr. Hayes. You'll have to wait outside until we get approval." "Approval? On my property?" Behind her, the guard shifted uneasily. I could see the doubt flicker in his eyes. He knew who signed his checks. Before I could speak, Isabella's perfume arrived first. White lilies, expensive and cold. She stepped out from the hedges, silk dress catching the light. "Walter," she said smoothly, "don't make a scene. This is Evan's day." Her voice dripped with the same poisoned sweetness I remembered from the divorce hearings. "You understand," she added. "Optics matter." The planner nodded, eager to agree. "We just want everything to look perfect." I looked past them, through the open gate, where guests sipped champagne near the fountain I'd restored brick by brick. Every stone had been signed off by me, paid for in cash, in sweat, in patience. Then I heard it. Evan's voice. Too loud, too clear. "Get this man off the property," he shouted. "He's dead to me." A stillness fell over everything. Even the fountain seemed to pause mid-splash. The planner froze. The guard turned. Somewhere inside the courtyard, a glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the stone. Guests turned their heads, eyes scanning between the groom and the gate. And there it was, the line crossed, the moment branded. I didn't move. I didn't shout back. My heart didn't break. It locked. I lifted my phone, pressed record. The ring camera above the portico blinked red. The Nest feed by the guardhouse was already rolling. My hand stopped shaking. "Officer," I said quietly to the uniformed security posted by the entrance, "please note the time." He hesitated, then pulled out his notepad. 10:40, 2 amperes. Sir. "Thank you." I put the velvet box back in my jacket, the silver pin pressed against my chest. I could almost hear Ruth's voice, soft and steady. "You did the right thing." My own answer came, quiet but final. "Now do the hard thing." I turned to the gate guard. "Lock it," I said. He blinked. "Sir?" "Lock the gate," I repeated. "Protocol." He obeyed. The iron doors swung shut, the latch echoing like the end of a sermon. Then I pulled out my phone again and scrolled to Alvarez's contact. One tap. He answered on the first ring. "Walter?" "Document everything," I said. "Video, audio, witness list, integrity clause is triggered." He exhaled. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." From beyond the hedges came laughter again, forced and brittle. I watched as the planner scrambled to redirect guests, her smile trembling. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the deed. The sound of the gate latch still echoed when I pulled my phone from my pocket. No tremor in my hand. Just precision. Years of command taught me that panic spreads faster than flame. "Mara," I said when the line connected. "Mr. Hayes here. Clause 7 owner's discretion for disorder. The event is cancelled." A beat of silence on the other end. Then her voice, calm, professional, the kind that handles chaos for a living. "Understood, sir." "Oh." Inside the courtyard, I saw her step up on the portable stage, adjusting her headset. The string quartet stopped mid-phrase, bows hovering. Guests glanced around, unsure if it was part of the program. Mara's voice carried through the portable PA. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said evenly, "please proceed to the valet. The event is concluded. Staff will assist with your vehicles." For half a second there was nothing. Then the air cracked open. Isabella's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the stone. The sound was delicate, like punctuation on a confession. Serena blinked, frozen, then sputtered. You can't just—" Mara pointed toward the brass plaque at the gate. "He can." Evan turned toward me across the courtyard, face pale beneath the perfect hair and tailored suit. "Dad," he said, voice rising, "you're ruining my life." I met his eyes. "I'm saving what's left of mine." "Oh?" The crowd began to split into fragments, some whispering, others filming. Phones rose like torches. The hum of gossip started low and grew, a swarm of voices. "Did he just? It's his property. Is this real?" The band stopped playing. Somewhere near the buffet, a child started crying because the music was gone. A white ribbon, half torn from the hedges, fluttered against the breeze. I heard the shuffle of police boots behind me. The on-duty officer stepped forward, touching his radio. "Mr. Hayes, do you want us to assist with the dispersal?" "Yes," I said simply. "Ensure everyone exits safely. Vendors are prepaid per contract. No one leaves unpaid." He nodded. "Understood. Orderly chaos. Controlled burn." Isabella was the first to recover. She smoothed her silk dress and hissed through a smile. "You think this makes you powerful?" I shook my head. "No, it makes me finished." Serena tried to argue with Mara, but Mara didn't flinch. "Ma'am, please proceed to your vehicle. We'll forward all receipts and documentation by email." The planner, headset askew now, hovered near the gate, whispering into her mic. Do I keep recording?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Always record." Evan walked toward me, disbelief twisting his face. "This isn't you," he said. "You're being manipulated." "By what?" I asked. "The law?" He took another step, then stopped. The officer's hand rested lightly on his arm, not forceful, just firm. For a moment the courtyard was a painting expensive clothes. Spilled champagne, sunlight on broken glass. Everyone frozen in the realization that money can't buy ground that's already spoken for. I glanced at the Nest monitor by the guardhouse. The red light blinked steady. All of it recorded, time-stamped, archived. Not vengeance. Documentation. A memory flashed. My gloved hand on a doorknob too hot to touch, the hiss of heat on steel. Control the environment, or the environment controls you. I turned toward the officer. "Thank you for your time." He nodded once. "Professional. We'll file a brief report, private property, no escalation." Guests filed out through the gate, murmuring into phones, dresses rustling like wind through dry leaves. Isabella stalked past me without a word. Serena followed, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Evan stayed frozen for a long time before finally walking toward the valet, hands shaking, no words left to throw. I looked at the manor one last time, the perfect flowers, the untouched cake, the hired illusion of family. They thought money was noise. They learned it's a switch. The morning after the canceled wedding, my house was silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the slow tick of Ruth's old wall clock. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee gone lukewarm, the Wall Street Journal folded to the markets page. The sunlight through the blinds striped the table in gold and gray. The house felt both heavier and lighter, like a storm had passed, but the air still carried its weight. I opened my MacBook Air, logged in, took a slow breath, then started typing. To Alvarez. Subject. Trigger clause. Funds revert to Ruth Hayes Foundation. Immediate execution. 2. Bank of America Trust Division. Hold donor announcement. Replace with reallocation to first responder mental health programs. Public statement by noon. 2. Superintendent Gordon. Cancel Whitcomb Townhouse punch list. Reassign crew to VA clinic build effective Monday. I hit send on each email without hesitation. The soft whoosh of the mail app felt almost ceremonial, one click per betrayal, one correction per insult. The phone rang. Gordon's number. Walt, he said, cautious. You're pulling Whitcomb's job? That's a big one. I know, I said. He hesitated. You want me to tell their project manager why? Tell them it's about values, I said. If they don't understand that word, don't bother explaining. Another silence. Then a low chuckle. Copy that, boss. One by one, I watched the notifications appear. Alvarez confirmed receipt. Executed 9. 13 amperes. M. The bank followed. Press release draft attached. Review pending your approval. The draft headline read, Ruth Hayes Foundation expands mental health program for firefighters, $55 M redirected to National Peer Support Network. Ruth would have liked that. Her name where it belonged on something real, not a wedding banner or cocktail napkin. My phone buzzed again. This time, Facebook. A Neighborhood Watch group post had gone viral. Did you see the video? The groom called his own dad a beggar at the gate. Comments stacked fast. That's the firefighter guy, right? He built that manor himself. Unbelievable. By noon, the clip had over 400,000 views. By 2 p.m., it crossed 1 million. The firefighter union's official page reposted it with a caption, standing with Captain Hayes. Respect is the currency. That one hit harder than I expected. I stared at the words, then at Ruth's photo on the wall, the one where she was pinning a commendation ribbon to my uniform, her smile just a little crooked. I kept your promise, I whispered. We'll put the money where your name can't be insulted on the jackets of the people who run toward fire. By evening, vendors started calling. Walter, just confirming Whitcomb's catering contract is terminated, paid in full. So, should we send the refund? Donate it to the foundation, I said. Tax write-off. Half of them did. The others stammered, sensing which way the wind was blowing. At 6:30 p.m., Isabella's PR firm tried to control the narrative. She released a statement. The unfortunate misunderstanding at our son's wedding is being misrepresented online. We ask for privacy during this challenging time. The post was flooded within minutes. Thousands of comments. Misunderstanding? We heard it. That man deserves a medal, not mockery. Actions have consequences. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Outside, the sun dropped low, the kind of evening light that turns every window into a mirror. I could see myself reflected in the glass, older, steadier, not broken. Just done. By dusk, the phone stopped ringing. The house settled into quiet again. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, and then faded. It sounded like a city voting. I guess 99% of you will hear this. Sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you? And where are you listening? A week later, I sat in the corner booth of Mel's Diner, the kind of place where the coffee's always burnt, and the server calls you home whether you're her favorite or not. The cracked vinyl squeaked when I shifted, and the morning crowd buzzed around me with the low hum of gossip and pancakes. On the counter, my iPhone screen glowed. The headlines stared back at me like a mirror I didn't ask to look into. Country club wedding, canceled by venue owner after groom calls dad beggar. Below it, a slideshow, my gate, my son, the crowd, the glass mid-fall. They'd frozen the moment like art, captioned it with opinion. A masterclass in quiet revenge, one blog called it. I wasn't proud, just tired. My coffee had gone cold. I drank it anyway. The phone buzzed again. A new text from a city council aide I knew from my volunteer board days. "We're reviewing Whitcomb bidding history. Thought you'd want to know." No emoji. Just that. I set the phone down, stared at the sunlight bouncing off the napkin dispenser. Outside, a delivery truck honked twice, sharp and impatient. Gordon, my site superintendent, slid into the booth across from me, grinning like a man who'd been holding news too long. "VA clinic," he said. "Full speed ahead, funding cleared. They dropped Whitcomb from subcontractor status this morning." I nodded slowly. "Good." He sipped his coffee. "You didn't even have to say a word." That's the point," I said. Truth works better without a script. Across the diner, someone's phone dinged loud enough for the whole room to hear. A middle-aged man at the counter looked up and said, "Hey, that's the firefighter guy." Then softer, "Good for him." The waitress refilled my cup, asked if I wanted another slice of pie. I declined. She looked at the newspaper on my table, the headline, the picture. "That your family?" she asked quietly. "It used to be," I said. On my phone, another notification popped up, Serena's name trending. Her Scottsdale influencer retreat had been postponed indefinitely, sponsors citing reputational concerns. In another tab, Isabella had posted one of those black and white quote cards that people use when they've run out of real apologies. "Healing means walking away from chaos." The comments were knives. "You created it. Try healing without someone else's money." The internet remembers. I scrolled once, then locked the screen. A single unread message waited at the bottom of my texts. "Evan, we should talk." No punctuation, no apology, just a flat statement, like a formality after the damage was done. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I set the phone down. The silence between us was louder than any argument could be. A brief guilt flared, small and sharp. Did I crush him? Or did he just choose gravity? Ruth's voice surfaced again, quiet as ever. "You cannot carry a grown man up a burning staircase if he won't climb." I finished my coffee, folded a 20, and left it on the table. Too much for a $4 check. But then again, overpaying was a habit Ruth had called buying back the world, one small kindness at a time. Outside, the street smelled like asphalt warming in the Sunday. An ambulance wailed down the block close, then far. A woman on the sidewalk paused to watch it pass. "Good," she said softly to no one. "Some things still work." I stood there a moment longer, watching the light turn the diner's glass door gold. Then my phone buzzed again. Evan's name. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I let it. Then I started the car. The storm had been crawling across the radar all afternoon, a long green smear edging toward town. By dusk, the rain came steady, tapping the gutters with a rhythm that sounded like thinking. I sat at the kitchen table, same place I'd signed every trust paper, every letter, watching the porch light flicker through the wet glass. The coffee had gone cold hours ago. The house smelled faintly of lemon polish and rain. Then a knock. Not loud, almost embarrassed. I opened the door. Evan stood there, drenched, hair plastered to his forehead. The suit clinging to him was Armani, but it looked borrowed now, like a costume after the curtain fell. He didn't speak right away, just looked at me, eyes rimmed red. When he finally did, his voice cracked. "You planned all of it," he said. "You wanted to humiliate us." I held out a towel. "You did that yourself." He hesitated, then took it. Water dripped onto the oak floor Ruth used to polish every Sunday until it gleamed. He wiped his face and looked around, like the house itself was accusing him. "I lost everything," he said quietly. I checked the time on my wrist, my old Omega. Second-hand ticking steady. "Not everything. You've still got a name. Decide what it means." He looked up, confused, as if he hadn't realized that losing comfort wasn't the same as losing identity. We sat at the table, steam rising from 2 cups of reheated coffee. The sound of rain filled the silence between us. He stared into his cup. "They're saying I used you, that I was part of some plot. Were they wrong?" He flinched. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." That's what everyone says when the fire reaches their own house." He looked up sharply, eyes narrowing. You think you're some kind of hero? You ruined me. I didn't answer right away. Outside, thunder rolled low, distant. Finally, I said, You don't inherit honor, Evan. You earn it. His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, he looked smaller than I remembered, like a boy trying to fit into a man's anger. I took a sip of coffee. Ruth used to say a lesson costs what it's worth. You're paying full price. He leaned back, eyes glistening. You think she'd be proud of this? I met his gaze. I think she'd be proud you finally came here instead of hiding behind their gates. He stared at the floor. The rain kept at it, steady and unrelenting. In my mind, a memory flickered Ruth standing at the station, welcoming a rookie firefighter on his first day. Nervous kid, shaking hands too fast. She'd smiled at him and said, Don't worry about proving yourself. Just show up when it's burning. I looked at Evan, older than that rookie, but somehow less steady. You came, I said. That's a start. He looked at me, waiting for something absolution, maybe. I didn't offer it. He stood slowly, pushing back the chair. I'll fix it, he said. I hope so, I replied, because the world's already watching. He nodded once, jaw tight, then walked to the door. The rain had eased to a drizzle. He paused on the porch, glanced back like he wanted to say more, then didn't. The door closed, not slammed, just a soft click. It sounded like a promise he couldn't yet keep. The call came just after sunrise, when the oatmeal on the stove was starting to stick. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and rain through an open window. Walter, Alvarez said, voice low and deliberate, they're asking for mediation. I set the spoon down, listened to the soft hiss of the burner. Who's they? Evan, he said. Through the Whitcomb's attorney. They're ready to settle. Settle what? He hesitated. Your reputation. I laughed once dry, tired. You can't buy back oxygen once you've burned it. He didn't respond, just exhaled. They want an NDA and an apology statement. Mutual release. I told them I'd ask. Ask all you want, I said, but you already know the answer. The spoon scraped against the pot. The sound was small, ordinary, but it felt final. By mid-afternoon, the courier came. White envelope, thick paper, gold-embossed logo from a downtown firm that charged by the minute. The kind of letter that thought its weight could buy silence. I signed for it, thanked the kid, and shut the door. Inside, the envelope sat on Ruth's oak counter beside the coffee pot and the framed picture of her holding a bouquet of lilacs. The photo glass had a faint crack down one corner, one of those flaws you stop seeing after a while. I tore the envelope open. Inside, a neatly printed NDA, 3 copies. A draft apology, ghostwritten to sound humble without admitting anything. We regret the misunderstanding. Both parties acted out of emotion. We have agreed to move forward in private. I read it twice, then reached for the shredder. The paper went in slow, then caught the teeth sh-cock until it became confetti. When it was done, I stood there, the smell of hot paper filling the room. Ruth's voice echoed in my head, gentle but steady. Always sign in blue ink. Truth should show. I walked to her desk, opened the drawer, and found her old Mont Blanc pen. Black lacquer, gold trim, a little worn around the cap. I uncapped it, tested the nib on scrap paper. Still perfect. Then I opened my laptop. The Ruth Hayes Foundation press release draft was waiting in my inbox. Alvarez had written the legal framing, but I added the headline myself. Integrity is inheritance. The release detailed the full reallocation of funds, every cent accounted for, every recipient named. Mental health grants for first responders, scholarships for firefighter widows, turnout gear for rural stations. Transparency not as a weapon, but as a mirror. At the bottom, a single line. No private settlement can restore public trust. Only continued service can. I signed it with Ruth's pen, blue ink curling into her name beside mine. When it went live that evening, the foundation site crashed twice from traffic. The local patch ran it under community news, the same section that used to post bake sales and road closures. The irony wasn't lost on me. Comments poured in. Finally, someone doing the right thing. That's real legacy. This is how you rebuild a name. One reply stood out from a user named eHayes93. I understand now. No profile photo, no bio. Just those 3 words. I didn't respond. Outside, twilight deepened over the yard, the lavender still blooming by the porch. I watched the last light fade and thought about how quickly paper burns, how neatly, how cleanly. But the smoke always smells the same. The WNJT7 van pulled up right on time, tires crunching over the gravel like hesitant footsteps. I'd agreed to the interview against my better judgment, mostly because Alvarez said silence lets others define the story for you. I wasn't out for vindication, just balance. Inside the living room, the reporter adjusted her mic pack and glanced around. Her eyes lingered on Ruth's photo on the mantel, the one with the lilacs. "We can blur that if you want," she said. "No," I told her. "Leave it in." She nodded, then took her seat across from me. A young cameraman framed the shot angled so that Ruth's face hovered just behind my shoulder. The red light on the camera blinked to life. "Ready when you are," he said. The reporter smiled, polite but practiced. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for speaking with us. A lot of people saw the video. Some called it justice, others called it cruel. Do you regret canceling your son's wedding?" The air seemed to hold still for a moment. I could hear the refrigerator hum in the kitchen. "I regret what made it necessary," I said finally. She blinked, surprised by the phrasing. "You don't think it went too far?" I folded my hands. There's no too far when you draw a boundary around decency. I didn't act out of anger. I acted because silence would have endorsed disrespect. And that's not something you can build a family or a city on. She glanced at her notes. "Wasn't it about money?" I smiled faintly. "Money was the mirror. Character was the reflection." She hesitated, pen poised midair, as if trying to decide whether that was a line or a confession. From the corner, the cameraman gave a small nod. He'd felt it. The interview went on questions about the trust, the foundation, the viral reaction. I stayed steady, kept my answers short. Truth doesn't need padding. When it was over, the reporter stood, unplugging her mic. "I didn't expect you to sound so calm," she said quietly. "Firefighting teaches you that shouting doesn't stop a fire," I said. "It just wastes oxygen." Outside, the crew packed up while rain clouds gathered again over the ridge. Before she left, the reporter turned back. "For what it's worth, sir, my dad was NYPD. He would have understood." I nodded. "Then he already does." That night, the segment aired. The opening shot, the viral clip of the gate. Evan's voice shouting. My silence on the other side. Then the interview, intercut with photos of Ruth, the Foundation's new programs, the VA clinic under construction. They titled it, "From Firehouse to Foundation, One Man's Code." The quote spread faster than I expected. Money was the mirror. Character was the reflection. It popped up in union newsletters, veteran forums, even a couple of church bulletins. The firefighter union page reposted the clip with a caption, "Respect is still the currency." The comment section, once a storm, began to calm. Didn't think I'd cry over a news story. That's a man who stood his ground the right way. Wish my dad had drawn a line like that. Even some of the Whitcomb vendors, florists, caterers, a photographer posted quiet apologies. One simply wrote, "We didn't know who owned the gates." Evan stayed silent. No post, no statement. Just absence digital and otherwise. But Alvarez forwarded me a link later that night. A short clip of Evan standing outside a firehouse, shaking hands with volunteers. No words, no press, just action. I sat back in my chair, the house dark except for the TV's blue glow. Ruth's photo caught a sliver of the screen light, and for a second, I could almost feel her warmth again, pride, not for the spectacle, but for the calm after it. When the camera light fades, the room feels heavier. Not lighter truth always costs weight. The first headline rolled across the CNN ticker on a Wednesday morning, small and clinical. Whitcomb development under ethics review sources cite. Contract irregularities. No sirens, no breaking news fanfare. Just quiet accountability in lowercase letters. I was at my kitchen table again, black coffee, the Wall Street Journal folded in half when the phone started buzzing. Alvarez first, then Gordon, then a number I didn't recognize. All saying the same thing in different tones. It's happening. By noon, local stations picked it up. By 2, every business blog in the state had a version. Whitcomb Development had lost 2 city contracts pending review. A sponsorship for a golf tournament had been suspended. Their Scottsdale project investor was reevaluating partnership terms. Translation: the ecosystem I'd once built around integrity was gone, and they were discovering how cold it is outside of it. That evening, in a glass condo miles away, Serena threw a vase. Not rumor verified by a neighbor who posted about it on Facebook. Someone heard shouting through the hallway. "Your father set this up!" Serena's voice. "He's not my father right now," Evan shouted back. And then silence. Later that night, my phone rang. His name on the screen. "Dad," he said when I answered. His voice sounded smaller, like a boy caught in a storm too long. "They're blaming me." I waited. "For what?" "For all of it. The contracts, the reviews, the optics. Serena's mother says I'm the reason the board's panicking." "The price of borrowed armor," I said quietly. "It melts in heat." He let out a shaky breath. "What do I do?" I looked at the clock on the wall, the same one Ruth used to tap when dinner ran late. The second hand ticked loud in the stillness. "Start with telling the truth," I said. Out loud, not in text, not in spin, just the truth. He didn't speak for a while. I heard him swallow. "They'll hate me for it." "Maybe," I said, "but you'll stop hating yourself." A soft exhale. Then, "I should have listened to you." "No," I said. "You should have listened to yourself before they taught you not to." After he hung up, the house felt heavier again. I stared at Ruth's photo and thought of the last time Evan wore his firefighter boots the parade day when he was 10. Ruth had insisted on double knots. "So you don't trip on your own laces," she'd said. He'd laughed then. He wasn't laughing now. On the other side of the city, Evan opened his laptop. The glow of the screen painted his face pale. He typed slowly, deliberately drafting a public apology on his LinkedIn page. The words were clumsy, half honest, half afraid. I failed to defend what raised me. The truth was never my enemy, only my mirror. He didn't post it. Just sat there, staring at the blinking cursor like it was judging him. Down the hall, Serena packed a suitcase, the sound of zippers cutting through silence. Back at my house, the evening news ran footage of the Whitcomb building empty lobby, PR statement taped to the door. The anchor's voice calm, almost kind. Whitcomb development representatives declined to comment, but confirmed leadership changes are under consideration. I muted the TV. The only sound was the clock again, ticking steady through it all. Sometimes the only sound of growth is paperwork falling apart. The banner above the stage read, "Ruth Hayes Foundation Annual Scholarship Night, June 18, 7 p.m., live on Channel 12. The ballroom smelled like waxed floors and coffee that had been reheated one too many times. Stage lights cut sharp through the dim, catching in the silver linings of the folded napkins. It had been a year since the wedding that never happened. The crowd tonight wasn't the type to clap for spectacle firefighters, widows, paramedics, small-town donors who'd driven in wearing pressed uniforms and tired eyes. They applauded service, not drama, which made Evan's presence at the podium all the more dangerous. He stood there in a dark suit, tie slightly askew, hands trembling just enough for the microphone to catch it. His voice, when it came, was small but steady. "My father," he began, "taught me to run toward fire." Pause. Cameras clicked softly. "I ran from it," he continued. "And worse, I mocked the people who still do." A shift rippled through the room. The audience wasn't hostile, just quiet listening. He swallowed hard. I told myself I was building something bigger than legacy. But truth is, I was just standing on foundations I didn't build, acting like the weight was mine to carry. One of the volunteers stopped mid-pour at the coffee table. The live stream camera panned slowly, finding my face in the front row. Evan's eyes found me too. "Dad," he said, and the word hung there like a bridge half built. The integrity clause wasn't punishment. It was a mirror. Someone coughed. Another sniffled. The kind of sounds people make when they're holding back something they don't know how to name. He went on. "When you canceled that wedding, I thought you were ending everything. But you were protecting something bigger than me, what you and Mom stood for. Duty, decency, showing up even when it's hard." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." The applause that followed didn't come all at once. It came in waves, uncertain, uneven, then grew until it filled the room. The veteran sitting next to me, one of Ruth's old colleagues from Station 34, leaned in and patted my shoulder. Took guts to show, he murmured. I nodded once. Didn't stand, didn't smile. Just watched my son under the lights, sweat glistening at his temples, the sound of his breath hitting the mic between sentences. He wasn't finished. I don't expect forgiveness, Evan said. Not tonight. But I do expect myself to earn it, not with statements with service. He stepped back from the mic, blinked against the flashbulbs, and gave a small nod toward the audience. Then he walked off stage, straight past the foundation volunteers, straight past the press table, until he reached the far side of the ballroom, where the light didn't reach. For a moment, our eyes met across the distance. No nod, no signal, just quiet understanding, the kind that doesn't need words to survive. On stage, the MC hesitated, unsure how to follow that. Then he cleared his throat and introduced the next scholarship recipient, a rookie firefighter whose father had died in the line of duty. The boy shook Evan's hand on his way up. It wasn't scripted, but it was right. Ruth's voice echoed softly in my head. Let him find his own oxygen. When the applause died down, I exhaled. Not pride, not relief, something steadier. He said everything right, but penance is behavior, not a sentence. 3 weeks after the gala, my phone buzzed with a text from Gordon, the foreman at the VA clinic site. Photo attached. Evan, in jeans and a faded flannel, hauling a sheet of drywall across the hallway. Caption, he didn't flinch. I stared at it for a long time. The sunlight in the picture caught dust motes hanging midair, the same kind of light I'd stood in 1,000 times before. The caption wasn't praise, it was verification. Later that week I drove out there. Didn't announce it. Just parked across the street from the chain-link fence where the Ruth Hayes Foundation Veterans Wing banner hung. The air smelled like gypsum and fresh paint. A radio played American Pie somewhere inside the open bay. Workers laughed. A hammer struck rhythmically, the kind of steady sound that builds trust before walls. Then I saw him. Evan. No cameras, no Whitcombs, no borrowed suits, just a pair of blistered hands and a face streaked with dust. He was sweeping debris into a bin, cracking jokes with 2 older vets in work boots. They laughed, clapped him on the shoulder. He grinned like he used to before all of this, before money warped the meaning of pride. I didn't get out of the car, just watched. He bent to lift another board, wiped sweat from his forehead, then caught his breath by leaning against the wall he'd just helped frame. His chest rose and fell slow. It wasn't performance, it was penance. The foreman spotted my car and walked over during break. Didn't think you'd show, Gordon said, leaning against my window. I'm not here, I said. He chuckled. Understood. How's he holding up? Gordon shrugged. Shows up early. Doesn't complain. Asked to start from the bottom, said he needed to remember what things weigh. I nodded. And the crew? They razzed him at first. Then he stayed late 3 nights in a row, patching drywall without being told. He paused. Respect's contagious, you know. I looked back at the site. Evan was kneeling beside a vet, showing him how to hold the trowel properly. A small thing, but there was patience in it. Ruth's voice flickered through my mind again, as clear as ever. Forgive when they act, not when they ask. I rolled down the window a little and caught the faintest sound of laughter, low, unforced. The kind you don't fake. When I finally pulled away, the sun was lowering behind the scaffolding, throwing long shadows across the lot. The VA logo on the sign gleamed. That evening, the Foundation newsletter went out. On page 3, under Project Progress, Veterans Mental Health Wing, there was a photo. Evan, back turned, sweeping near the wall. No credit line, no caption, just a man working. The comments beneath the post came quietly. That's Ruth's son, right? Glad he's helping. Looks like he's where he belongs. I didn't reply to any of them. Didn't call him either. Instead, I went to the garage and found the old hammer Ruth had given me when I retired from the department. The handle still fit my palm like an old handshake. I set it on the bench and thought about how strange it is how the world burns down faster than it rebuilds, yet still, some people come back to pick up the nails. Through the open window, I could smell rain again, same as the night he'd knocked on my door. But this time it wasn't warning, it was renewal. Some debts are paid in silence and sweat. The park looked different in autumn gold spilling from the trees, the air just cool enough to make the coffee steam visible. I'd been coming here once a week since Ruth's memorial went in, but this was the first time I wasn't alone. Evan stood by the bench already, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. 2 paper cups sat on the plaque between us. Ruth Hayes, keep the flame. He didn't look at me right away, just nodded toward the cups. I didn't know if you still took cream. I don't, I said, sitting down. But I'll take the gesture. He half smiled. Mom would have hated the press. I glanced at the plaque, the brushed metal catching the sunlight. She'd have loved the point. We sat there for a while, listening to the wind work its way through the trees. Leaves skittered across the path, a few landing at our feet. I could hear a kid laughing somewhere near the playground. That unfiltered kind of joy, Ruth used to say, was proof the world still deserved saving. Evan broke the silence. I read the clause again, he said softly. I finally get it. I waited. It wasn't about control, he went on. It was insurance against forgetting. That's all legacy is, I said. A reminder not to forget what matters when everyone's distracted. He nodded, staring at the coffee cup in his hands. You were right about the money. It was never the problem. It was us. Us is repairable, I said. Just slower than cash flow. That earned a small laugh reel, a little broken around the edges. A gust of wind rattled the branches above. For a second, I saw Ruth in the reflection off the plaque, her smile faint but steady. Maybe imagination, maybe something else. I reached into my coat pocket and took out the old Omega. The metal felt warm against my palm, worn smooth by years of timekeeping and patience. Evan's eyes widened when he saw it. You still wear that? Every day, I said. Kept better time than most people. I turned it over once in my hand, then held it out to him. He looked at me, confused. You're giving it to me? Temporary custody, I said. Not inheritance. He blinked, then laughed through a sudden tear. I'll earn the time. That's the deal, I said. He took the watch carefully, the way he used to hold sparklers when he was little aware it could burn if handled wrong. He fastened it around his wrist, too loose, but didn't adjust it. Feels heavier than it looks, he murmured. It should, I replied. We sat in silence again, both of us watching the hands move tick by tick, steady, unhurried. A squirrel darted across the path, breaking the stillness. Evan reached down, brushed a few leaves off the base of the bench. I forgot how much she loved this park, he said. Said the trees here made her feel small in the right way. I smiled. That's Ruth. When he finally stood, he reached out a hand. Not for a hug, just a handshake. I took it. Firm. Brief. Enough. I'll keep showing up, he said. I know, I said. That's how you start. He nodded once, then walked toward the parking lot, the afternoon light following him through the rows of trees. I stayed behind, listening to the leaves crunch under his steps until they faded. The coffee had gone cold. The bench was warm from the Sunday. The gears still ticked between us, tiny teeth catching, finally aligned. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you, and where are you listening? The VFW hall smelled the same as it always had, wood polish, crock-pot chili, carnations arranged in an old boot at the edge of the stage. The folding chairs creaked. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. For a moment it felt like stepping into a memory instead of a room. It was scholarship night again, the Ruth Hayes Foundation's annual gathering. The same place where, a year ago, Evan had stood in shame and apology. Now he stood in purpose. He adjusted the mic, cleared his throat once, twice, the way I used to before briefing a new fire crew. His tie was slightly crooked, his voice steady. In memory of my mother, he began, and in honor of my father, the Foundation will add a new clause to every scholarship we award. A low murmur rippled through the crowd, teachers, veterans, volunteers, widows who still sent $10 checks in envelopes that smelled of mothballs and lavender. Evan continued, his words slow and deliberate. Starting tonight, every recipient will commit to mentoring the next class. Service forward, not just gratitude backward. He paused, glanced down at the index card in his hand, then set it aside. My mother used to say that legacy isn't about what you leave, it's about what you lend. So we're adding this to the charter. You don't inherit money, you inherit responsibility. The room went still. Then applause began soft, then swelling until it filled every corner of the hall. Some people stood. Others just nodded with that quiet respect you only see in rooms where work outweighs words. He looked over at me. "Dad," he said, voice catching just enough to sound human, "thank you for locking the gate when I lost the key." For the first time in a long while, I couldn't find words. My throat tightened. I just nodded once, slow, because anything more would have broken the moment. He stepped back, let the applause cover the silence that passed between us. Later, after the chairs had scraped and folded, after the last crock-pot was unplugged and the carnations were gathered from the tables, I stepped outside into the cool night. The porch light flickered above the door, the same one that always did, and the faint scent of lavender drifted from somewhere, maybe the flowers, maybe just memory. Evan joined me, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his hair mussed from the hugs and handshakes. For a while we didn't say anything. The air hummed with the leftover warmth of the night, the kind Ruth used to call earned quiet. Finally, he broke it. "I didn't lose 55 million, did I?" I smiled. "No. You found what it was for." He laughed, soft and surprised, then looked out toward the parking lot where the streetlights painted long shadows across the asphalt. "I didn't think I'd ever feel okay again," he said. "Feeling okay's overrated," I said. "Feeling useful, that's better." He nodded. "Guess I finally understand what you meant about fire. It's not about burning down. It's about lighting up." We started walking toward our cars, two silhouettes moving in step. For the first time in years, our strides matched. Behind us, the hall windows glowed faintly with the last of the cleanup crew, their laughter muffled but warm. On the plaque near the door, Ruth's name gleamed under the porch light. "Keep the flame." "Oh?" I looked at it once more before we left, and for a heartbeat I swore I could smell her lavender again, faint and clean, like a whisper through the night. "You did the right thing." When the hall lights dim, I hear Ruth's words in the hum of the exit sign, quiet, steady, unburned.